Hi everyone, my name is Patty Minch and I am a sixth grade science teacher at Reynolds Middle School, which is in the school district of Lancaster. I live in Millersville, just a few blocks up from the university. Ironically, however, I'm only taking online classes, so I don't actually have to go on campus. I live with my wife and our 9-month-old son. We have a dog too. My son and my dog are best friends, so that's always great. I love to golf and be outside. The top left, my dad and I went to the BMW Championship, which featured some of the best golfers just this last fall. And in the top right, I love to hike and be outside. I used to live in Ireland, and so there's a photo of me climbing a mountain with my family. So that's a little bit about me. I teach at Reynolds Middle School downtown in Lancaster. I teach sixth grade science, which we do a lot of earth science and space science. We do a lot of dynamic earth, which is really fun. So we're talking about erosion and plate tectonics and volcanoes and stuff. So it's pretty easy to get the students engaged and to be energized in what I do. After school, I do a lot of robotics and coding with some students, and so we do some engineering challenges and see what we can build and come up with. A really cool thing that I'm stoked about this year, we got grant funding to take all of our sixth grade students in the whole district down to the Chesapeake Bay to a camp called North Bay, which is in Cecil County, Maryland. So as of now, I have about 120 students signed up, and we're going to go down for an entire week, staying over in cabins and doing environmental studies and some character building and stuff like that. So that'll be going on at the end of February, so it's coming up pretty soon. But I'm really looking forward to that. At Millersville, I am working towards my master's in assessment curriculum and teaching with a STEM endorsement. I have this class and then one more after it, which I should knock out during the summer one course, so I should be done by the end of the school year. My goals with the degree, I want to stay in the classroom for a little bit longer. Hopefully become an instructional coach of some sort, whether it's in STEM or technology. Maybe a little bit later on move into educational leadership of some sort, whether it's in a building administration or something like that. And also work towards my doctoral studies and hopefully work at a university or college teaching or something like that. So that's where I'm going, hopefully. All right, digging into the reading that we had to do and looking at action research a little bit. So looking at the different resources that we had, they all had different models and ideas of what this should look like. However, they're all pretty much the same thing. So I'm going to focus on the one that we looked at in our text from Mills. I think the area that I'm going to feel that I'll have the most difficulty is actually the first step, which is the identifying an area of focus, or as Spencer put it, the planning stages. I'm the kind of guy who likes to tinker with things and kind of figure things out as I go, but obviously with action research that's not the best way to do it. So I know that I'm going to be very detail oriented and trying to make sure that I have everything mapped out and planned out as best I can so that the data collection and kind of the action portion of the action research goes smoothly and I have all the components that I need. So I think that's going to be the area that I struggle with, maybe because it's the first thing that I have to do, and so maybe I'm just being nearsighted and I'm not looking ahead to all the other things. But I love to analyze and interpret data, and then I think my favorite part, the thing I'm looking forward to, is the action plan afterwards, coming to a conclusion and then putting my new knowledge to work. So that whether that's digging down and creating new activities and lessons based on what I know for the following year. So I'm looking forward to that. I do think that getting started and getting the ball rolling is really going to be where I get bogged down a little bit, but once I get past that, then I know I'll be able to kind of fly through things. Looking at having action research being a part of my daily teaching. So in the text from Mills, he mentions that he had a student who, as he says, I unwittingly made her feel that research was something that could realistically be done only by full-time researchers. do not have a real job to contend with, namely teaching 28 very lively first graders. So I have about 80 or 90 very lively sixth graders, so I definitely resonated with this, and that's kind of where I am right now as I think about action research, and I want to move towards the quote from Mills a little bit later on where he wrote, know that action research is a process that can be undertaken without having a negative impact on your personal or professional life. So that's where I hope to be by the end of this course. But to be honest, I'm kind of at that first quote at the moment. So I'm looking forward to seeing what that transformation looks like, and seeing how my instruction and my mindset in teaching changes to make action research more of a daily approach to my instruction. So the obstacles that I kind of foresee, the first is, as any teacher would tell you, would be time. So there's a lot of moving parts in the school, and a lot of places where I've tried to step up and take on different projects or whatever it might be. And so making sure that I have the time to implement things with fidelity, plan accordingly, and just do it well. That's the first thing that popped in my mind. My school and the district in and of itself has a lot of other initiatives that we're kind of pushing through. So a lot of new programs or practices that we're trying out, and so trying to figure out how we can weave those things together, and how my action research project would kind of fall into that. As a science teacher, there's the changing of standards, and so the kind of the unknowns of what will I be teaching next year if we do roll out next gen, if the state does, and if we adopt it our first year. So there's always that kind of uncertainty. I don't know how that would affect my action research, but that uncertainty is kind of an underlying current of my instruction this year. Another potential obstacle, I'm not sure how this will play out. This could be a really positive thing. It could be something that makes it a little bit trickier, but the number of students. So I have about 80 or 90 students that I work with. I have 4 classes that rotate through, and I have everything from an honors class to a class that has a really high ELL population. I have a lot of students with IEPs. I have some students that are non-English speakers. So I have a really wide array of students that I work with. And so I'm curious to see how that will play into my action research. That could be powerful in my action research, because if I find something that is effective, or if I implement something that's effective and it works across all of these boards, then that's fantastic. But it does provide me with a lot of variables and things that I have to be mindful of in that regard. And then lastly, again, I'm not sure if I see this as an obstacle, but just adjusting my instruction or shifting my own paradigm to utilize action research as a daily practice, as Mills had mentioned a couple slides ago. Looking at the stories from the field from the article by Ferentz, the one that really stuck out to me was the one from Rebecca Wisniewski. Her action research project stuck out to me for a number of things. First, her question, or the team's question, was what can we provide for effective reading instruction for 3rd and 4th grade English language learners who are limited readers or non-readers. So as I mentioned before, I work with a handful of students who are refugees and have limited previous education or no education before. And so they are not fluent in English, and at times they may not even be fluent in their own home language. And so that this project really stuck out to me because it was applicable to my own teaching. The other thing that really stuck out to me was the project-based learning that was kind of a part of this. So her solution, and a lot of what she talked about in her interview, I guess, was that they had students doing projects, and that's how they kind of closed that gap, I guess, or worked with students. They had them writing newspapers, having parents read them, having students read it to parents, bringing it back signed. So I'm a huge proponent of project-based learning. It was meaningful tasks that the students were invested in, and so that kind of ticked all of the boxes that that I look for in that sort of instruction. So that kind of really pulled me in as well. The other thing that pulled me in was, as I mentioned before, there's the shift with next-gen standards potentially coming down the pipeline. And so I thought that Wisniewski's approach towards strategies was something that would kind of be an underpinning, regardless of what standards you're teaching. It's something that's looking at practice, and so that's I want to try to replicate that in some regards. Lastly, she looked, or rather listened to student input, and I thought that was very vulnerable and maybe not vulnerable, but really almost validated the work that was done. It was honest feedback from students that was used as part of the action research. So that kind of stuck out to me. So not to completely put Julie Nora's aside, one thing that really stuck out to me from her testimony was where she wrote that one of the basic principles of action research is that researchers need each other's ideas for stimulation to depend on other people's perspectives to enrich their own. So that's something I really want to kind of have up on my bulletin board, to be collaborating with the people around me, to be collaborating with you guys in this course, and kind of getting your ideas and going from there. That does bring up one of the concerns that I have, and something that Wisniewski actually mentioned is the team was actually kind of got to a point of a lot of discord, and they didn't know how to move forward. So one of my concerns is, what does my team look like in my own building? To what extent are people going to be willing to kind of give their own time to support me in this? So I'm curious to see how that goes. My team is fantastic, so I'm sure that they'll step up to the plate, but I also know we have a lot that's going on as well. So a little bit curious about that. Some other concerns I have would be showing no evidence of growth, and I know that you can still glean things from that to show that certain practices aren't effective, but I would really like to come away with this with some sort of evidence of effective practices that I can move forward with and continue doing or shift my practice towards. And lastly, I think I mentioned before, just alignment to curriculum and the new programs and frameworks and initiatives, and trying to make sure that what I'm doing is kind of everything else kind of falls under the bigger umbrella of whatever practices I'm working towards, so that as things change in the classroom with standards or whatever, I'm still doing research on something that is a little bit more solid, if that makes sense. So I think that just about sums it up for me. I'm really looking forward to working with you and getting to know you. It looks like there's not very many people in this course, so I think we'll be able to have some really good conversations. I hope to learn a lot from you, and hope to bring some things to the table as well that hopefully are helpful to you as well. Thanks.